Join us as we open another file in the Markov dossier.
File number Armis Armate 420-260-10. File opened.
Saluton, and welcome to this episode of the Markov Dossier, a dystopian age podcast. My name is Scott, and I'm here with Sam.
Howdy, pilgrims, we're back.
After an extended, unintentionally long break, we are back.
Life got in the way a bit.
Yeah, life, and many failed and wonderful plans never happened, but that's the nature of everything, isn't it? So it's fine.
So on tonight's podcast, we're going to have a very special interview with a random member of the public we've plucked from obscurity. He was kind enough to take some photos for us at Games Expo this year. His name is Scott Webster. Hello, Scott, and welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thanks for having me on. This is a huge honour. It's one of my favourite podcasts of all time, and I'm really appreciative of the time.
Yeah, our man on the scene was, of course, Scott. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to make Expo this year as I was in Yorkshire. I was driving down the M1 while you were enjoying yourself. I was very rubbish. The whole day was great. Driving down the M1, not so good. And I was the passenger, I wasn't actually driving. It's like, I could be at Expo. Sucks.
People did ask for you as well. Parker and Chris said, no Sam this year, and I said, no, unfortunately. He had other engagements this year.
Yeah, I thought maybe I can go on Saturday or Sunday, and no, that's not happening either. Damn it! I thought, oh, Sunday's clear, and now half the family's turning up for a barbecue, so Sunday's not clear. It's lovely to see the family, and I'm going to enjoy the barbecue and everything. I was hoping maybe I could sneak a ticket, but never mind. Oh well, I shall have to live vicariously through your photos, which are quite excellent. So, this is what we got planned. I'm basically going to interview Scott about what he saw, what he did, and I'm going to basically pump him for as much information as possible because I need details. I need a lot of details. You may have seen already, Scott did a little broadcast. Was it yesterday you did it? Yes, it was yesterday you did it. On his initial thoughts, and we're going to dive a bit deeper into those. So, buddy, for this, let's start with, for those that haven't been to UK Games Expo yet, set the scene for us. What is it, what it's about, and so on.
So, the UK Games Expo is the largest tabletop game convention in the UK, full stop. The only one that even comes close to it is Salute. That's the London Warlords wargaming, but that's all war games. UK Games Expo is board games, card games, war games, everything. It's 3 days. They have shows, they have talks, they have loads and loads of stuff. It is absolutely ginormous, and it grows year by year. When I was standing in the queue yesterday, one of the security guards said, come on people, move along, we've got 200,000 people to get through here. And I was just like, crikey. Was it 200 or was it 20? Oh no, I think it was 20,000 people, sorry. 20,000 people.
You're getting carried away and exaggerating.
Yeah, I over-exaggerated there. It was 20,000 people. And it was really, really busy. Thanks to the incredible UK public transport system, I was over 45 minutes late into the convention. That was part bad buses, bad trains, and also a lot of queuing for tickets. There is something to be said for arriving early, grabbing your ticket and queuing up to go in, rather than coming in late and then queuing for your tickets, because it does take a heck of a long time. But yeah, it was really good.
We've always in previous years got there really early, haven't we, to get in, and we've found it it's very seamless when you get there. It's you queue up, here's your pass, here's your ticket, thank you very much, and in you go. But when there's 20,000 people all trying to do the same thing, that does slow down a little bit.
It's just a little bit. I was a little bit disappointed. I will just have a slight negative this year on this year's UK Games Expo was that I didn't receive a free program this year. You got a map pack of where everything is, but that didn't have the program of games that were going to be there this year, any of the shows, talking about those, all that sort of really interesting stuff. It was just like a bog standard little map pack. I think they were selling like the programs for the event rather than giving them away for free, which is a little bit disappointing, but I suppose
production costs on those things must be immense.
Yeah, and producing one for every single attendee over 3 days probably gets quite expensive. So while I kind of understand it, it was disappointing. And if they were free, I didn't see any at all. Like every single white stand that I went to that they usually have out, they usually rammed with those sort of things, was completely empty. So either they ran out quickly or they were selling them. But I didn't get a chance to see, so because I was on a bit of a time push yesterday. There was lots I wanted to see and do. And
I think the app has a lot in it.
The app's no longer available.
Poop.
Yeah.
Oh, forget that then.
So, because I tried to download it for my QR code on the way in, and it wasn't in the App Store. But you can still get the stuff off the main website now. So, again, I guess that's a cost-cutting thing, having to pay for being on the App Store and keep the app running when they've already got the website. So, it sort of makes sense. But, again, there was no mention of it beforehand. So, yeah, it was a little bit of a disappointment, but otherwise, like, it was still as good as usual, and still plenty of vendors there and tons of games. So yeah.
So you got yourself in. I'm assuming your first port of call was Wayland, who are usually quite near the front of the hall.
Yep. So because of the way the ticket was in Hall 3, and then that's where the open gaming area was, and some of the tournament stuff was this year. And it led straight into Hall 2 where Wayland Games were, and they had a little... So last year, I think one of the complaints was you had to go all the way out of the Hall 3 and then back into one of the other two halls to get in. I think it was Hall 1 that you had to go in last year, but they had both halls open when I got there. So I could just literally go from Hall 3 to Hall 2 through a little security check, making sure I had a ticket, and literally 5 or 10 feet in front of me was the Warcradle stand and Wayland Games. Yep.
Okay, so I'm guessing you probably... Did you hit the cabinets first? Was that your first port of call, or did you have...
No, so I went straight over to the table because I was dead curious to see who was running the demos, what the demo was looking like, and if anybody else was around that I could see, like Chris or Stuart, sort of just say hi to them. There was a couple of lads already having a demo when I turned up, and there was somebody sort of with them as well. They were all having a discussion. Parker was running the demos, and I didn't spot Chris to start off with. I don't know if he was doing something else. And then I took a couple of snapshots of the table, and then walked round to the cabinet to have a look what was in the cabinet.
And we've got the photos for what you saw in the cabinet. Was it all Armoured Clash? You only took photos of the Armoured Clash?
No, it was only one shelf of Armoured Clash. Everything else was Dystopian Wars. Oh, actually, no, that's a lie, because the top shelf was, I believe it was like staff painted miniatures for stuff that they'd done. So there's a lot of variation on the top shelf. I think there was Warhammer and I think maybe Malifaux. I'm not sure. I feel like there was more than just Warhammer for certain, but I can't remember exactly what it was. But there was only the one shelf that was all crown of Armoured Clash. When I did manage to collar Chris, he sort of went through the little bits and pieces with me. So I'll just go through quickly, following my own photos for guides. Right, so from the top left to right, there was the Crown Cavalry on Black Hoofs. There was the Black Watch Dragoons. Then there was your bog standard infantry, I believe, was next. Next to them was the Rocket Troopers. Next to them was some Black Watch Engineers, which I found quite interesting. They are helping keep stuff on the table and stuff like that. Then there was a light artillery battery at the end of the top shelf. Then going down to the next shelf, you had 3 blocks of standard cavalry, but one of them has, so one of the things that Chris said to me when he was talking me through the cabinet was Your regiment sprues are going to get a lot of different options for different bits and pieces, so for different poses and stuff like that, to make it a little bit more varied. And each sprue, I think he said, had 18 infantry on them, so you'd be able to build, was it 18? Was it 16? I can't remember, but basically you'd have enough for quite a few little bases. But there are options on there, which you can see in the third one along from the left at the bottom, for a commander and a standard bearer. Just so, one of the things is that you draw line of sight from your command unit, so you need to make them stand out a little bit from all the other ones. And then there was the sovereign artillery version, was the other thing on the very far end, because there was just more infantry people basically on the bottom.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, no, there was the tanks as well, wasn't there?
There's the tanks to talk
Yeah,
about. Yeah.
So you have the Galahad tank, and I can't remember what the little APC is, but that on the first picture on the left is a little APC. I'll come back to that later because that's something that's important. Then you've got a heavy artillery piece, and then you've got the Galahad tanks. And as you can see from the photos, they are absolutely amazing little miniatures. I was really impressed with the detail, especially on the infantry. Like, considering how small they are, you can very easily tell what they are meant to be. And especially with something like the Black Watch Dragoons, where you've got the rider, you can still see that it's a guy with his kilt on and sort of the Highland attire on, like it is in the sketch that we saw. So
Yeah.
I was mega impressed.
I'm loving the tank designs. They look simultaneously realistic, but at the same time they've got that dystopian age edge to them, which, you know, takes it beyond the realism of the time, but they're very, very British in look, not just because they've got there's a sort of lion thing going on with the APC, but just looks a combination of World War One to World War Two tanks. There's influences both from both of those. The artillery piece is gorgeous with all the brass work on it, very Victorian in design, how they would heavily over ornate everything. It's not to the meat grinder designs that we had basically during World War One, where everything was pure utilitarian. And then we've got that little APC with very much looking like a little lion from like it's just rolled off Nelson's column and then got turned into a tank. Great designs, really good. And Daz's painting, of course, absolutely brings out the best in those.
Yeah, it's one of the things I'm a little bit nervous about when we come to getting this stuff in our hands, is painting the inventory, because I'm not getting any younger and my eyesight is not that great up close anymore. It's not terrible, but it's not as good as it used to be. The tanks I don't think is going to be an issue, because there's enough detail and armor plate separation with the tracks and the filigree and stuff like that, and the engine parts, where it's going to be easy enough to pick that out with very little effort. But I think that even with something like a contrast or a speed paint, you're going to have to be so careful with the quantities you put on it. It's going to be interesting to see. But the details on it, I think, are definitely going to help. I think like just like a tiny blob of colour and then like a heavy wash should be enough to make them good enough.
Yeah. I've just ordered some just went on the website and bought a load of very small paintbrushes this morning. I thought, I'm going to need those. I'm learning paintbrush sizes because I ordered a set last month and thought, these aren't as small as I thought they were. Some of them are quite big. But that's going to be for the Ironhide then. But so I've ordered some less than one size. I've learned paintbrush sizes now, so I've got some micro paintbrushes which will do absolutely perfect for these, I hope. But yeah, you're going to need to get your tiny brushes out for this, and a steady hand. I have no idea how I'm going to paint the infantry. I've looked at those, I'm like, no. Yeah,
it's going to be very interesting to see how they will do. I think some of the you might be a little bit better off with the Empire, because some of their infantry were a little bit larger with the details on them, and the terracotta warriors are, like, as you can see in the photos, they're between the bog standard troops and your Blackwatch Dragoons.
Yeah.
They're not super tiny, but they're not ginormous either. So I think they'll be a little bit easier to sort out.
I think colour primer is going to be your friend. Or my friend, certainly. So he's going to spray whatever colour I'm doing base and then just pick out the important bits afterwards. Yeah. Oh yeah, I can see the terracottas now. I've got them there. Oh, they look wicked fun. They are nice. Yeah, I think it's doable. I mean, even with my very limited skills, like I said, a colour prime, and then just pick out bits with a small brush just to give them some contrast colour. I think I can do the infantry. We'll find out in a couple of months.
Yeah.
How good am I painting? We'll see. This will put me to the test. Hopefully, Daz will be giving us some tips on this. Actually, that'd be something I'd like to see. How to paint tiny.
Yeah, that would be really, really good, because I think, as I said to Parker, because we were sort of discussing like going to 10mm, and he was sort of saying, you know, as he's moved on, he's wanted to see bigger battles, and the going the smaller scale really helps you do that, rather than doing something like 40k Apocalypse at 28mm. You have to have such a large table and it takes so much time to move everything, whereas going to 10mm, you can move things so much easier, and it won't take you all day to move everything. And I think a lot of people may not have jumped into 10mm before, so having like a guide of how to do infantry before any of the boxes launch would be really, really useful.
Yeah. Back in the day, I had the original Epic Space Marine, and painting that was not happening. Nope. But yeah, we definitely would appreciate a painting guide on this, because I think this sort of scale is definitely the future. I can see more games going down this route. I don't know how many games are out there that do this, but I know it's a big historical thing, this scale. But seeing fantastical, I don't like saying fantasy because it's not fantasy, but fantastical versions of this is definitely, I think, the future. You can get those big armies, and it's not going to break your bank balance doing it, unless you want it to, of course. So yeah, I'm so looking forward to playing with these, seeing these tanks. Oh, they're gorgeous. They're so good. Empire stuff, which is probably where I'm going. Oh yeah. Definitely one.
Yeah, on the Empire stuff, there was nothing in the cabinet. I didn't ask why. I'm assuming because it's still being painted for shows and stuff. But you saw the little tanks that we've seen before in the original teaser image. They look even better in person than they do in the photos. They are super cool. I think like the amount of paint schemes that will be done with them and what they can look like is going to be really cool to see. It's one of my for the crown. I think like a simpler paint scheme is going to work really well, but I think for some of the Empire stuff, because you need to sort of have a little bit more embellishment on it, some of the armor stuff is going to look really interesting when it's done. Same with like the dragons for Dystopian Wars. I think some like really embellished paint schemes.
The panel work's just screaming out for contrasty colours. You've got big sections there, the turrets, the ones we got here painted with this lovely, just call it copper oxide green, wouldn't you? With the burgundy, ready burgundy, contrasting against that, and then the yellow gold. It's perfect. It's absolutely, and you could just go so many different ways about with the different panels and so on. You can easily mark out your different units by just, these are the ones with this coloured panel, front panel, and so on and so on. They're great. I love the design. They are just brilliant little tanks.
Yeah. Then you've got Terracotta Warriors in the next photo. They are probably my second favourite miniature that I've seen this weekend. And shortly behind them is the Flaming Foo Dogs, which are also in this behind the mortar jet bike, not jet bikes, mortar trikes that are in some of the photos. Well, but I do really love the crown tanks. I think they're fantastic.
Oh, God, I've just zoomed in on the dogs. That's the first time I've done it. Oh my, yes.
Yep.
Oh, Celestial Guardians, definitely. And those trikes. Oh, yeah.
They.
Oh, they got. And you got the riders with the helmets on that I love.
Yep.
Those. I'm not sure. There's probably a proper name for that hat type helmet that they've gone with the Empire for the design, which I absolutely love. It's brilliant. I've been corrected on how practical they are. I thought, surely that's not practical because you wouldn't be able to look down, for example, and you'd be blinking. And then someone, look. Somebody said, yeah, but look at these historical helmets. I went, oh yeah, it doesn't matter. Okay, fine. So. Yeah, the miniatures are so good. I'm zooming in on them now and looking at I've not been able to do this. Looking on my phone is one thing. I'm on my laptop. I'm zooming in and looking at the detail. Thinking, how the hell have you got that much in 10 mil?
Yep, it is
That's
crazy.
brilliant.
It is absolutely insane. I was blown away by it. I really was. And I even said to Chris when he asked me what I thought about the miniatures, and I was just like, I cannot believe the detail that you've got on these 10 mil figures. It is insanely good. I mean, I know. So. Mantic Game done a Kickstarter for their small version thing, but they've gone 12 mil instead of 10 mil because they couldn't keep the details as far as I could understand on some of their stuff, so they bumped it up to 12 mil just so they could keep it. There's another game called Drop Zone Commander, and I've got some of that stuff, and while the detail isn't terrible, it's certainly not at this level. On some of the walks and tanks, it's about on par, I'd say, and it's all plastics for the most part in a lot of the stuff of Drop Zone Commander. There is resin as well, but I think there's quite a bit of plastic from what I remember. But I'd say there's on par, maybe even this is a smidge better from what we've seen so far. So yeah, I'm absolutely astonished by the detail they've managed to get on them, and me being far too carried away, but the big behemoth for the crown, for the Empire, is just as good. They're land ships, but they're called behemoths. The type of unit they are is a behemoth, and it is very reminiscent of all the design cues you've got from the Empire and Dystopian Wars. So
thankfully Chris has put up a little photo because I begged. I said, somebody please get a decent shot of this because you got carried away with the crown and forgot.
Yeah, I
did. And Chris has put up a fantastic side-on shot of it where you can see the front and the roller, and oh good God, I love it. It is epically brilliant. You've got the whole pagoda thing going on it with these massive engines sticking out and the huge wheels and the spiky death roller at the front, which is, oh God, that's good. It's, honestly, it's Mad Max meets the Seven Samurai.
Yeah.
It's brilliant. I love it.
Yeah. It's really, really cool. It's really, really striking in person as well. It's not a small piece of resin at all, and it's not hollow either, so it's got a weight to it, which is good. It feels like it looks hefty, and it feels hefty, so I was well impressed.
Did Chris mention if there were like the crown tanks got options?
No, he didn't say that they were options, but I don't think at any point he mentioned any of the builds, because he said there was plenty of options for the other stuff, for the infantry, for the, I think he said for the bikes there might have been some, and there's other stuff we haven't seen yet at all for the Empire as well. Yeah. There's more on the infantry side that we haven't seen yet, but we'll probably see more of that before release. So that's exciting to know that there's other stuff still being held back that we haven't seen for the Empire yet. So,
yeah, you don't want to show everything too early.
No.
Oh, the colour. I love the wheels. I'm looking at the wheels with this red in the hub. Oh, Dad, you're a genius, mate. You are absolutely genius. That is gorgeous to look at. Alright then. So, we've set the scene. So, you get your time on the table. And you took Crown, I believe.
Yes.
And you were playing against another goer of the Expo.
Yep.
Not someone we knew.
No. His name was Ed. Really nice guy. Really fun to play against. We had a good giggle between the two of us about it. It was a good little game. I will also say I had to wait. There was a couple of guys there when I went first time, and they played a full demo, and I did stand around and watch them to sort of get an idea what was going on. And then I spoke to Chris for a little bit, then I came back and I sort of walked up the table at a similar time to a couple of other guys that were mates, and they were like, oh, can we have a demo? And one of them said, oh, I think this gentleman was before us. And I was like, no, it's absolutely fine, because I'm going to want to like take photos in properly of the table stuff. So you crack on, and I can watch and I can make some notes while you're doing it, just for myself. And they're like, brilliant, thanks. And both the first demo I was at, the second demos I watched, and the demo that I played, I was really happy to see how many people were coming up to the table and going, what's this? This looks cool. What's this? This looks cool. Oh, this is Armoured Clash. This looks really cool. Like, I was really blown away by like how many people were coming up to the table. I think I passed it a couple of times on the way out as well, and there was still people playing or waiting to play it as well. So,
well, that's what you want.
Yeah.
We know it's made a splash amongst the community that we see, but it's nice to know that it's made a splash outside of the Dystopian Wars community, and that people are taking note, and the community's just going to get bigger and bigger.
Yeah,
which is absolutely what we want for Warcradle. We want to see it successful. So, congratulations, lads. Sounds like you have definitely arrived with this game. So, you got to play with. I'm assuming Parker was the one taking you through.
Yes. Parker was kind enough to run me through the demo. Before we started the demo, I said to him, "I'm going to need a selfie with you before I leave, because I want to wind Straw up a little bit." But me being me, I absolutely and totally forgot. Like, I came away from the table buzzing and being like, I can't wait for this game to come out, and I totally forgot to take the photo with him. And then once I'd walked away, because obviously I don't want to interrupt somebody else's game just to get a selfie, so I just thought, there's always next year.
Oh, poor Parker. we love you loads, dude. Right, so talk us through the game. So, what happened? How did the turns work, and so on and so forth?
Right, so let's go through this step by step, shall we? So, at the beginning of the game, we both had to flip our Command and Conquer deck. There are numbers the same as with Dystopian Wars, Wild West Exodus. There's numbers in the corner. Whoever gets the highest number gets to pick whether they go first or second. The numbers.
So it's 50 is higher, yeah? That you mean, close to 50.
But the numbers are only 1 to 12. The entire deck does not go above 12. So if you flip the same number, you just flip again until you don't get the same number, which is burning through your Command and Conquer deck, unfortunately, but
that's part of
the game. You get a hand of X amount of cards, and it's the same as Dystopian Wars and Wild West Exodus. There is a Command and Conquer, which you either use to gain you special actions or abilities during your turn, or you can spend them to get extra victory points for the scenario. So it's pretty familiar to anybody who's played either Wild West Exodus or Dystopian Wars. It's not anything that we've seen new. The only slight variation is the numbers don't go massively high. It's only 1 to 12 and no more than that, and that's because of something I'll come back to in a bit. So once you've picked who goes first, it is alternating activations. So it's you go, I go. Once you've got the initiative, I'm not sure because we only played one turn, but I'm assuming when you go to the next turn, you do the same again. Flip for initiative. Whoever wins picks whoever wins it then gets to pick.
Picks what the yeah.
But we only played a single turn. So my first activation was the light artillery on the hill. So this is where I learned about a couple of mechanics within the game. So the first mechanic was, my initial thought was, I'm going to use this artillery to wipe out that unit of infantry that's over there. They were well within range. I was rolling 7 dice. Actually, no, they weren't within range. I thought they were within range. I was rolling what I thought was 7 dice. But what it turns out is, as you can see on the profile cards I've shared, every single unit has 3 attacks. You're not picking different weapon systems. You're not like saying I'm going to fire this, then this, and then this. You pick a single target, and your weapon system on your squad or vehicle has a profile against the target you're aiming at. So it's either light, which is mostly infantry or smaller vehicles, and then you have heavy, which is tanks, behemoths, anything that's armor. You also have an aerial, so that's anything that's a plane, a rotor, a dirigible, whatever it may be. And you have 2 range bands and how many dice you roll against that particular target. So the first distance is the short range. If you are at short range, you get a bonus. If you are at the longer range, you do not get a bonus. The artillery were not good against infantry. They had a shorter range. They couldn't easily hit infantry. The way it was explained to me is if they were going to fire against infantry, it's not explosive stuff, it's armor piercing stuff, so they would have to reload the gun with like a shotgun style shell, which would like explode thousands of pellets at a close range. So whilst it was more like to kill more people, it was a much shorter range band. So I couldn't hit them at the moment, but I could hit any heavy armor, but I was rolling less dice. So I decided to shoot at the tanks with that, and managed to take one off in the first shot, which was pretty good. It wasn't 100% explained to me, but Parker said it's pretty much like Dystopian Wars. So you have a defense and you have a limit. The way I understand it is your defense cancels out a certain amount of hits, and then your limit is how many hits after that it needs to take to remove 1 tank or 1 unit. So infantry have like a limit of 1. So if you scored 6 hits, their defense would take out X amount of those hits, and the rest of the hits would then take off 1 base of infantry for every hit you did. And the same with tanks. You would then add up the damage, take a unit off, and if there's any spillover damage, it would go into your next tank because it damages it as a unit.
So for example, if the limit was, let's say the limit is 2, and you did 5 hits, defense would take off some of those, and then for every 2 hits after that defense,
you take a tank out.
Yeah.
So that was pretty simple. I then believe he activated those tanks, came in close, shot me up a little bit on my tanks. He managed to chip a little bit of paint. He didn't do a particularly good roll. And then I activated my dragoons, and it was very much back and forth like that between the two of us, and we picked it up fairly quickly. There was a couple of things that came up after that. So what you get for your shooting, and potentially in the fighting as well, is you get 3 levels of strength basically. So you've got strong, neutral, and weak. So if you are shooting at something, most of the time, if you're at long range and there's no kind of disadvantage like cover, or some things have shielded, which puts you down a strength, and things can put you up a strength. So on plus and minuses is putting you at different strengths. If you're at plus strength, there are black symbols on the dice. Any black symbols you get to re-roll if you're at plus strength. If you're at neutral strength, you only get to re-roll a certain amount, like a certain type of the black ones. I can't remember which one it was off the top of my head. And then at the minus, you're only getting to re-roll for your heroic hits, which is the special symbol on the dice.
So I'm just gone back to a picture of your dice. So I can see the symbols there. So you've got a blank side. You've got the Armoured Clash logo, which I guess is what you mean by heroic hits.
Yep.
You've then got a green sergeant stripe,
which is a single hit.
And you've got the black, what looks like a Lance Corporal stripe, and a black X.
Yeah, we didn't cover anything about what the black things do. It may be something to do with aerial, it may be something to do with hand-to-hand combat, but we didn't get to cover that in our first turn at all. All we were told is you can re-roll the black symbols if you're at your strong position, basically. Also worth noting is heroic hits cause 2 damage in a similar way to they cause extra damage. In Dystopian Wars they cause 2 damage instead of 1 damage, and they generate X amount of dice. So if you roll 3 heroic hits, you get to roll 3 more dice. But
just like Dystopian Wars,
those second lots of hits do not cause more hits, so you cannot roll.
Yeah. As you said in your little video, that's because infantrymen don't keep exploding.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it makes perfect sense when it was explained to me. I was like, oh, I wonder why they've made it like that. But then when they said, because, you know, if you hit a person, they don't explode, and tanks are so well protected against certain things, it's less likely that they're going to explode. So, made total sense.
Yeah.
And things like shielded and devastating means that you can't go down too many levels and your opponent can't go up too many levels and things like that. So it sounds like it's going to be a lot more, at least to begin with, simple than Dystopian Wars in some ways. It's not going to be quite so, what's the word I'm looking for? There's not a lot of minutiae on the weapon systems. It is basically, this is, you've got your 3 stats for your weapons, and that's the way it's going to be.
It's not death by mathematics.
It's a lot.
Which is good because I suck at First time we played Dystopian Wars and we messed up it's how many times you go over the armor value. That was, everyone's dead. What happened?
I mean, I get a feeling that this is going to be a very killy game, even with those limited weapons options. I managed to take out a ton of his stuff with my Sovereign. So when we came to the Behemoth activations, the great thing about Behemoths is, number 1, heroic hits can never cause more than 1 damage on them. And number 2 is they can fire 2 sets of weapon systems. So if they had all 3 weapon systems on them, if they had a light, a heavy, and an aerial, you can only pick 2 of them. They've only got light and heavy. Then you can fire both of those systems. So you can pick a heavy target and a light target.
So yeah, I get how you mean now. It's not just we're shooting one gun and that's the category. It's these are the guns for that and these are the guns for that. Fire! Off you go. Which, when you look at your Crown Sovereign one and it's got guns, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So I managed to wipe out almost like all of his infantry with 1 shot from my Behemoth, and he had a lot more than me to begin with. Something else that is interesting is that there was no template use in the game at all. Vehicles and people can do up to a 90-degree pivot. There was no talk of facings, but my assumption is that you can clearly tell what's the front of a base and what's the rear of a base, is that you can shoot anywhere in that 90-degree arc that you can turn. So
that makes sense.
It's fairly simple. Of say turn, this is where you can shoot. It's not so much like there's a front, a rear, and a side.
I imagine some things will probably be able to shoot 360, for example.
Yeah. The thing is about the Behemoth as well is that they are not unkillable. 2 of the games that I saw played, Chinese one was wiped out, and the Crown one was always on its last legs. And the same my game. Like I was 1 point on taking his Behemoth out, and he was, I think, 2 points on taking mine out. So it's not like that they are just going to be unstoppable killing machines where you can't touch them, like a battleship where it takes a lot to take one down. I mean, it still took quite a lot of focus fire to get rid of them, but at the same time, it wasn't impossible. It wasn't something you weren't going to do at all. The flamethrower dogs were horrible. They took out my entire infantry regiment in 1 shot. They have a very short range on them, but anything with flamethrowers, no.
It's lethal to infantry.
Yeah. It was just so painful. But that's what you expect from giant flamethrower robot dogs. Really, they're going to be devastating if they get up close. So yeah, they were cool. One of the other things that we got through when we were doing it is that the morale system is very easy to pick up and understand. Is like on the card you have a discipline level. You are looking to either equal or under that discipline level. So the higher the discipline, the better. If you go over it, what happens is they get a token. I think it was devastated. No, it wasn't devastated. It was
disordered.
Disordered, I think. And they move back 2 inches, which does not sound like a lot. However, the next turn when they go to activate, they immediately take a discipline check again. If they fail, they go back under the 2 inches and they keep the token. If they continually fail to the point where they would leave the board, they leave the board. But they have all that chance to try and regroup. And again, it pushes you out of range of things. So for stuff like the food dogs where it's short range, pushing them back 2 inches 1 or 2 turns just keeps them outside of that incredibly volatile range.
That's good, because there's a lot of, you can put a lot of fluff around that, because I imagine one of the things the British have, the Crown have, is disciplined troops. You know, they were a professional army, whereas someone like the Empire may still be using levies. Ashiguru, I think is the proper name for them, where basically levied soldiers, conscripts, which probably don't have the highest discipline in the world. It's like, yeah, no, thank you very much, we're going.
Yeah.
Oh.
And what Parker said is they wanted to replicate that. They didn't want it to be like you fail twice and you run off. It's going to be like if they're very highly trained soldiers, they're going to be used to battle, so they may panic a little bit and try and find some better cover, but they're not going to leave the battlefield, not unless they are really, really shaken. And that obviously moving back 2 inches constantly would represent them being, completely shaken. Yeah. And that is why the card system goes from 1 to 12 only, because it works on that discipline system. So you're going to burn through those cards fairly quickly if you get constant discipline checks.
Can I ask, as you brought it up, is it evenly distributed, numbers 1 to 12, or are there, like in the Exodus action point cards, the bigger points tend to turn up less often?
No, it's evenly distributed.
Okay.
I'm fairly certain they did say how many cards were in the deck, but I can't remember off the top of my head, but I think they were fairly
60. Evenly. I imagine it's 60. Yeah. There's 60 in both the other 2 games.
Yeah. I think that covers all of the game mechanics that we went.
Did you get to use your Command and Conquest? You've got photos of them. Did you get to use them?
No, because we weren't playing for victory points. I didn't read them properly. We also didn't get into hand-to-hand combat. I've just remembered that I didn't cover something. With my crown, you can see in one of the photos you have the APCs. They were set up specifically so they had 2 units, 1 in each APC of infantry, bog standard infantry. So the interesting thing about troop transports in this game is it's very similar to sort of standard military tradition of your transport is assigned to your regiment. So they specifically have an APC for their infantry. It is attached to them throughout the game unless you give them a special order to separate and reorganize who they're assigned to, which means they activate together and they shoot together.
So you're covering fire from your APC, which is great.
Yeah. But it also means that you can't separate away from them easily. If you want to separate away from them, you have to give them a special order, which basically would use up your entire turn for that activation. So then you would lose essentially 2 units.
For 1 turn while you're separating out to get 2 separate units the next turn.
Yeah.
So risk and reward as ever built into Warcradle games.
Yeah. And as you can imagine, the APC guns are not great. They're very sort of little pea shootery sort of things. They didn't really do a lot of damage. I tried shooting some bikes with them. They didn't do anything at all. But it's interesting that it has that sort of military tradition of this is our APC. It's the 112th Flash Heart Division, APC, nobody else can use that APC apart from the Flash Art division. So I thought that was really flavourful and interesting, but it also...
So you can be embarked, and then I'm guessing you can disembark at some point.
Yeah, so because you all activate in the same turn, you would activate your APC, which is what I did. You would move it, and then if you wanted to, you can disembark your troops within 2 inches, and they can then shoot, but they will be at a negative modifier. So they would go from being at that neutral strength to being at that negative strength, making them just a little bit less effective, but it's not super punishing, but it is a little bit punishing. And it was sort of mentioned when we were talking about scenarios and things, when I asked about that you can garrison units into buildings, but because we didn't really cover those rules properly, I don't know if you could disembark and then garrison somewhere quickly. It'd be interesting to see if you can do that.
Probably not, because the whole disembarking thing, it's a bit of a scramble to get a decent position where you're not getting mown down by a machine gun. So that's why you've got that negative to get yourself in position. So you've got the mass fire. I think you probably could disembark, just dive into a building, but again, you'd be at a negative, I think. So similar to the advantage of you can move quick, but you're going to like submarauder. You're at a small penalty that first when you do your pop up, you're at that small penalty, and then you're at full strength. So can you survive long enough to shoot properly?
Yeah, and I guess it depends. If you're like within 2 inches of that building, maybe you could just pop straight into it, or I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how that works.
Well, yeah, plenty of. Obviously, this was only a taster game. We're not going to get the full rule set yet, but that's a good thought. So yeah, APCs actually doing APC stuff is a very good thing.
Yep.
Okay, so that's how you go. I'm sorry, the big question is, who was winning at the end of your turn?
Do you know what? It was pretty well balanced out at the end of the turn. We both had low health on our behemoths. We'd both lost quite a lot of infantry. The Empire had an extra unit compared to me. Parker sort of was a bit confused as to why the Empire player was getting an extra activation, and then he realised there's more Empire units than there was Crown units. But that was because the APCs and the infantry were attached to each other, so while there was the same amount of units, because there were no APCs for the Empire, they were getting one more activation. So yeah, it was pretty damn close.
Good. You don't want it to be that's the whole point. You want it to be a close game so that you can get the flavour.
Yeah, and because neither of us had looked at our cards, me being a veteran dystopian wars and Wild West Texas played, I thought I'd have known better, but I was just a bit too caught up in what we're doing. It was a very fun back and forth. It was sort of like I can't remember what it was, because I'd sort of got first blood. He wanted to, try and take something off for me, so he got rid of some of the artillery, and then I got rid of some of the infantry, and it was sort of like a friendly back and forth between us of trying to get revenge on the last thing that happened. It was quite a fun little game, but yeah, it was very close.
That's what you want. That's the whole point of a demo, to have fun. If you're trying to get competitive in a demo, you've not understood the point of the demo. That's brilliant. Okay, so that's how it went for you. So let's talk about. We're now wandering into the territory of rumour mill. I know the lads have done a interview with On the Tabletop, which I've not had a chance to look at yet, so I need to have a look at that. Would have been great if we got to that before I did these questions. So hopefully we're not covering too much that's already in there. We know the boxes are going to be big. They've mentioned that they're going to be sizable, and you're going to get a lot in them for your buck's worth. And as you said, more than what we've seen. Did you get any other hints about how big we're talking here?
No. So they were very close to the chest with what was coming. I couldn't even tell you if there's more than one resin for certain. Nobody would sort of say for definite that it was sort of I think Chris said to somebody at some point, "Oh, you get resin in the box," but he didn't say how much resin you got in the box. So I'm assuming it's going to be one, and then the rest is going to be filled out with plastic. Both Parker and Chris said what was on the table was only a small percentage of what you're going to get in the box. When somebody else asked during my demo, are you going to be able to play a full game with what you get? And they said absolutely, you're going to be able to build like a full army out of that box, and then you can add stuff in and take stuff out as you need later. And you can, you know, even if you buy more stuff, you can still play a sizable game with that. It's going to be a lot of plastic, is all I know.
Yeah,
a lot of plastic.
Awesome. See, they've already mentioned the running order. We know Crown and Empire are going to be first. I think they've mentioned that Union will be the next one, but they haven't talked about order yet, whether it's going to be like big box, big box, big box, or big box, few little boxes, and so on. They haven't discussed that yet, I don't think, or keeping that to the chest.
So one person that asked yesterday, there was a little bit of a slip. It sounds like it's going to be big box, little box for infantry, and then little box for armor, and then if there's time this year, big box for Union.
Okay, so basically we're going to be playing Crown and Empire for a while. That's good. That's very good.
Yeah. But by the sounds of it, from the way they were talking, I don't think we're going to struggle to build different types of armies. You know what I mean? Because there's going to be so much option in the box. We're going to be able to field a different composition of army for a good couple of months.
Oh, great.
So,
yeah,
that's a bonus.
So, yeah. And you can have, you can always say it's war games, but, we're fighting our own side, but we're having war games and so on and so forth. So, yeah, that's great. So, you get somebody put it as having first and seconds. So, we'll all get firsts with a side plate, and then the next course will come on and so on. I'm going to go Empire, obviously, because it's the first one's out, and then I'm probably going to hold on my horses for the Enlightened, because let's go where I'm comfortable with. Give me my monsters, give me my animated corpses, give me my whatever else that Sturgeon can come up with and throw at people. Yes, please. We'll have some of that, but yeah, that's probably where I'm going to go. So I'll hold my horse. I will probably go in Empire and then put some money aside to make sure that when the line come out, I can have those as well. I know my son's very interested. He wants Crown, of course he does. So we'll have to see how we can manage that when it all comes out. We know army lists are going to be in the Orbat style. They've mentioned that, haven't they? Yeah. And we're not sure yet. It's not going to. We don't think it's going to be. Did you say about regiments and generals? It's not going to be part of the initial game.
Yeah. So when I asked Chris, because it was some of the questions that came up, though, I said, if you've got any burning questions, ask us, and I'll ask whoever I get to talk to. And I just asked Chris, are they intended in the initial release? And he said, the initial release will not have regiments of renown or patrons or named generals of any kind. It will be like your standard force organisation and like your, what they called in Dystopian Wars. It's not bog standard fleet. it's like a standard
faction fleet. Faction
so it'll be like a faction battalion or a faction battle group or something like that.
Yeah.
And it's going to have like a good mix of everything to begin with, so like I say, you can build a good mix of stuff.
I think we'll be that. I'm very surprised if that's not on the plan. Just keep it, release it, drip at a time, because it's not much point having patrons when you've only got two armies.
No, I think from what he said is it will be the same as Dystopian Wars. Is everything will come out first, and then they'll look at stuff like that, and it'll be in a campaign book. Whether that campaign book will be a cross campaign or not. Again, there were sort of little maybe hints that it might be a cross campaign. I think on tabletop short interview they did at the stage yesterday, Yeah, they did mention that there will be crossplay for certain, but how soon that's going to be is still not 100% certain.
Yeah. Again, walking before you can run with everything. Did they mention if there's going to be an equivalent to the Valor effects that we can do in Dystopian Wars? So, like, okay, this unit has a Valor effect. I'm going to burn some cards to do that. Is there a system for that, or will that be talked about?
No, and I don't see how that's going to work into it, because a lot of Valor effects work on the defense systems or the weapon systems, and because they are bog standard, I don't think there's going to be anything like that. I think they may have something like battle group bonuses on the Orbat stuff, but I think the closest you're going to get to the Valor effects for those.
Yeah. Okay. Right then. So, I suppose the burning question is, of course, how invested are you in this?
Very invested. So, a couple of things I will also talk about that have sort of come to mind since playing it. I think I already said, but I'm not sure, but I will say it again. We didn't get into close combat range at all, so I don't know how the melee combat works, fighting person to person. The Terracotta Warriors had short range weapon systems, but they looked like they were more geared up for melee, and same as some of the infantry looked like they had better melee weapons than they did non-melee weapons. So it's going to be interesting to see how that works when it works. Obviously I didn't get to see any aerial. There was no real discussion about the aerial. I did ask about the base sizes because I was curious to see if we would get a different base style, but it's going to be the oval bases of the same size we've got for Dystopian Wars, but they'll be ground patterned instead of water patterned, because obviously that makes the most sense for a ground game. Table size will be 6x4, so it's not a 3x3 or a 4x4, it's going to be 6x4. I would say from the one turn that I did, you were going to want to build tables with a good amount of blocking terrain, because our table was completely open from side to side. She had some stuff around the edges, but from my side of the board to Ed's side of the board was absolutely clear, which meant that we could just pummel each other constantly. So you are going to want to build a table with a varied amount of terrain on it. It cannot be devoid of terrain.
Sure.
You're going to have like some of the buildings that they've got out, or you know, if you've got 10 mil terrain for the Games Workshop, Legions Imperialis, Drop Zone Commander,
or as we said, you can get some train buildings for Enscow.
Something I didn't take photos of, and I probably really should have. The token sheet is not the token sheet that you get from World War Sexes and Dystopia Wars. It is a completely different token sheet.
I think one of your photos does have it. It's just there on the side of the table, so you can see them.
Yes, So that sheet, there was 3 sheets, but I didn't get a good look at them. They were being like Parker was guarding them like a Cerberus. So there are some similar tokens on there to the stuff that we've seen in Dystopian Wars and World War Sexes, but they're ever slightly different, some of them. So I thought I was quite interested. So I'm not sure what the skulls or the red arrows do, but you've got...
Just tell me that those damage tokens don't have a random number on the back and they actually match up this time. Looking at you, Dystopian Wars tokens.
I don't know. I think that... I know Parker had to fish through a lot of tokens to put the right damage numbers on, so I don't know if they correspond, but like I say, I didn't get a good look at them, so I can't say for certain. But they are different, which was interesting. What else haven't we covered?
So the buildings they've got, were they the... I can see they've got buildings. Are they from the
industrial plastic set?
Industrial set?
Yeah, they were really, like, in person, they were so nice to see them properly. They're a good, solid construction as well. I thought maybe because they were like squares that they might be a bit fiddly to build or something like that. But somebody was saying they put some together and they were really nice. Went together really solidly from the start. So I'm definitely going to be picking some of those up at some point.
Lad, you've just reminded me of something. Somebody asked on the Storm of Steel, how many boxes of those did you need to make those fortifications? It was Mike Pierce that asked this. And Stuart put, depends on the box used. Okay. And so there's a hint there, although more terrain is coming. So these are, so it depends on the box used. Those are the standard, as you said, I'm looking at them, yeah, they look like the industrial sets. I could be wrong, but they look like industrial sets. So it looks like there's going to be more sizes of boxes, so you can build something on there. Stuart's hinting that there are bigger boxes available, or will be available, which is going to be interesting.
Definitely. I know that they said there is definitely going to be more terrain coming, so, and it was going to be a mix of like more varied styles of buildings as well as faction specific buildings. So I imagine like the old fortifications that you got from Dystopian Wars / Armoured Clash from Spartan, we may see some of those in this, we may not. Time will tell, but yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if I'm honest, just as a thematic thing.
Well, in that case, I'm going to have to think about when I order me starter box, I will probably be ordering at least one box of buildings as well to go alongside it, so I've got something. Because nobody wants to be playing with banana block of flats, do they? No. This apple is my power station, and so on. Just doesn't look good. Right, I think we've covered everything, because I asked you about buckets of dice in another place, didn't I? Yeah, when you were doing your video, it's not the buckets of dice that you get Dystopian Wars. It's a much smaller handful.
It's, I would say you're looking maybe 10 to 12 dice maximum. Hang on.
Are they normal size dice or the tiny
normal
dice?
Size? They're your regular D6 dice.
Yeah, they're definitely not doing the bucket of dice approach then, which is good. I mean, I love the bucket of dice you get with Dystopian Wars, but it can be a bit of a pain sometimes. And they've gone everywhere. Bugger.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I do like rolling big handfuls of dice, but sometimes it is a bit of a fiddle. So yeah, glad that it'll be a little bit smaller hands. I'd say probably 12 was the most I rolled in one. 9, 12, something like that. I think I mentioned it yesterday on the video that I did, but I will mention it again here in case people didn't watch that video. The people that asked yesterday, when is it coming? And I think that's the big question that everybody now has. When are we going to see the first boxes? Someone asked, and the answer, like, should I put this on my Christmas list? And the answer is, you can put it on your Christmas list, but it'll have been out for a while already. Someone said, is it available to buy today? And the answer was no, it's going to be a couple of months before it's coming out. And someone else that had asked said, like, can't you give any specifics? And the answer was not really any specifics, but we're looking at the end of summer. So you're looking around maybe at the most September. But then somebody else had asked, when do you think we'll be able to get this? And they said, sometimes around August, September. So I'm thinking we may see July pre-orders day that they'll go up. It may be August pre-orders day that they go up. So the sort of end of July, end of August pre-orders might go live, depending on, and it all depends on their production, like if they can produce enough stuff. So I think what we're in now, June's pre-orders are going to be another load of Dystopian Wars potentially. I know there was talk of Wild West Exodus stuff, so I mean, but that was towards the end of the year, so it seems a bit early for that.
I think June's pre-orders may well end up being Ghost of Midwinter.
Yeah.
May well. That's an educated guess, guys. I know bugger all. I'm just guessing. Don't get excited.
I mean, they did say that there'd be a campaign booklet early this year, didn't they? So, or spring this year. So we're still in spring now. I think that's a fairly safe bet. Maybe even the Alliance balloons potentially, because that's the only thing I can think of off the top of my head. But nobody expected. We're not going to do the news for this episode. We're going to do that in the Mavel interview episode, but it's going to be coming up in the next few weeks. But yeah, nobody expected those 3 big.
It's not going to be Alliance balloons. Then Stuart's already confirmed they're not even sculpted yet.
Okay. So
yeah,
I'd say campaign booklet is probably your safe bet, and there was no new sprues this month, so there's not going to be like a small box or something next month. So midwinter campaign box is a really safe bet, I think. And then maybe something else.
As we're talking DW, Stuart has confirmed that DW is not just going to grind to a halt. ACs here. There's going to be releases every month for at least a year. I think he said for at least a year. We're not seeing the back of DW just yet.
That's good. I'm glad that's.
Yeah. He has confirmed that DW production will continue alongside AC, so it won't just vanish. We're not done yet with it. Got plenty to do.
That's good. That's very good. Yeah, I think that's it. So by the end of the summer, we should all have at least pre-orders in for stuff to come in. So just as the colder months come in.
Yeah. Perfect time to get into your friendly local game store and huddle around a table.
Terrible time for priming models, though.
oh, yeah, that's true. Well, maybe Wayland Games can have a special offer on those booth things that you prime in.
Yep, that'd be useful.
That'd be good. There's a hint to Wayland Games. Yeah, we'll buy those.
Maybe it's the they've seen the hype for the 3D Engine Kickstarter that's coming through soon, and we're going to get that plastic train set that we wanted for Wild West Exodus all those months and years ago.
Oh God, yeah. I just need a 3D printer. I have to see if there's a 3D printing service near us because I want those so much.
Oh, definitely. Okay,
Anyways, we'll have to see how much the Kickstarter is. Anyway, moving on. So that I think covers everything. So the important: should you be going to Games Expo if you've not gone already? Yes. Should you be buying AC Armoured Clash if you're thinking about it? Definitely. Anything else to add on that? Those are the big takeaways for me.
No. I would say the next few months are going to be very, very interesting. Like seeing those extra Empire things that are coming out, maybe even like seeing some. I'd really, really like to see some of the art for the other stuff, because I think the one thing that I heard people say is, and I've seen it on the lounge and in Discord, is I really want to know what my faction's aesthetic theme is going to look like, even if it's just the art for one unit from each faction. Just to give people a flavour of what's coming, because I think having such a long time, if you're an Enlightened player, to wait for your faction box to come out, if you've got no idea what it's going to be like, you're not going to be interested. I mean, you're going to have like a vague interest, but other games may steal that away. Whereas if you've got like a little bit of a tease, like if you have a rough idea whether that aesthetic is for you or not, you're going to be more invested if it's definitely for you. I mean, if it's not for you, if they pick the wrong thing, which is unlikely, and they go, oh, that's not for me, there's still another like 6 factions where they might go, oh, actually, I quite like the look of that Imperium giant robot with a sword, or I quite like the look of that French Legionnaires unit, or I quite like the look of that Sultanate Order gate, or whatever.
On that note, just a reminder for people listening, if you go to our Facebook page, we do have as much artwork as we've ever found on there, and if you look in the Lost World Exodus section, you'll see quite a bit of artwork for various factions, not all of them, but there is some, which should give you a flavour of what your AC is going to look like, at least the infantry that we can see, not the We haven't got artwork for any of the vehicles.
Yeah.
But there is a flavour there if you want to visit our Facebook page. And we can you can have a look in there. But yeah, we definitely need flavour. And of course, there's always one faction has to be the last to be released. It's always painful for the players that want that one. They're the last on the list, and somebody has to be. And we don't know which one what the exact order is at all. We've only got some very vague signposts for what is coming.
I'm going to call it now. I think Sortnet will be the last one.
Oh, Sortnet were the last for Dystopia Wars, weren't they?
They were. I don't know if it's just me being pessimistic, but I don't know if that's going to be an indicator of, because the Crown and the Empire, I believe when I've done my data things, Crown has been like in the top 3 and the Empire has always been in the top 5, whereas the Sortnet and the Order for Wild West Exodus have always been dead last for people playing them. So I feel like the Sortnet is either gonna be last or second to last, because the only other people is possibly Alliance last. But I feel like with the foul ban and everything that's been released recently, they've gone up in the world a little bit in Dystopian Wars with people playing them. And
there's a lot of Alliance lovers out there.
Yeah.
Oh, there really is.
And
there's a lot of love for the Alliance.
At UKG, when I've seen people being like, "Oh, Dystopian Wars, it's linked to this. Oh, cool," and the people were picking up Alliance boxes before they were picking up anything else. So
they're pretty ships.
They are.
They're pretty ships, and I imagine their land vehicles are going to be just as glorious.
Yeah. Yeah. So.
And the Order's going to be just as cheesemongery as ever.
Yeah.
Kill with prejudice.
Oh, I cannot wait to see like 10mm Corcoroli. That's going to be so amazing. I did say to both Parker and Chris, I'm going to struggle with factions just as I've struggled with factions in Dystopian Wars. I don't want to end up with 4 factions, but picking 2. What I might do is see what happens.
You're going to end up with 4 factions. Just lean into it now. Just take your time getting there. You're going to end up with 4 factions. I'm going to end up with the other 4. Again.
Yep.
And we're just going to have to accept this.
I don't have the... Oh, mind you, it's only 10mm. That's fine. I can fit.
Yeah, you just need to stack some shelves up a bit closer together.
Yeah.
Yeah. All that vertical space you don't need now.
Yep. Yeah, I've got nothing else. I can't think of anything else that I want to say on it. I'm really excited. Like, it's pushed my excitement level up a notch. I wasn't sure about it initially. The models that we saw, I will say this: I was not keen on the Sovereign with the dome on it. Seeing it in person totally changed my mind on it. The dome is just as cool as a gun. I think the angle was just wrong on it. Even the death roll lot, which I definitely wasn't keen on at all anyway, looks better in person than it did in the photos. So
you've no taste. The death roller is just brilliant.
No, it's not for me, but it definitely makes a bigger impact in person because you've got that scale and you've got how striking it is now it's painted as well. It made a heck of a lot of difference. So yeah, I'm dead excited, and I want to learn more about how it plays after turn 1, like with it, and especially the aerial stuff, hand-to-hand combat, garrisoning buildings, the scenarios. Like, there's still so much that we have yet to know, even though we've learnt a lot from this weekend. So yeah,
you've had the hors d'oeuvre. Now you want the main course.
Yeah, absolutely. I am amuse-bouche.
I was kind of disappointed that you didn't find out what happens when the death roller runs over somebody, because that's got to happen. Yeah. That's what it's for.
I feel like it was designed that way to begin with. Like they were designed not to get into hand-to-hand combat. And I will sort of say this. I did say it in my WhatsApp video. they did say that they are still ironing out some of the mechanics and the point systems for the game, which is why I think that's another reason whether they're not sure it's August, September, as to whether it can be completely ironed out in time for printing deadlines and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So,
well, that's the good thing. We want it when it's ready, not
yeah,
half-baked. We don't want to, we're going to have to revise the rulebook after 2 weeks. We want it there, that works.
But also the Orbats, what it sounds like is, it is going to be like Dystopian Wars, where we are going to be able to say, guys, this is broken, guys, this doesn't work, and it'll be fixed. We'll still have that community feedback, and it's listened to, and it's understood. And
what Warcradle do so well.
Yeah.
They know the community is their lifeblood, and they listen to us. And if you've got a good suggestion and it flies, why not? They'll try it out.
Yep. Yeah.
So let's call it an end. So that's the end of our first episode of 2024. We're back. We will be putting out more episodes this year. We've had our break now and gathered ourselves back together. So hopefully we'll see you very shortly on the next podcast, where we'll be talking to Calvin and Richard about their time at Mayville and how that went for them.
Yeah.
And then who knows? We'll see where we go.
Yep. I mean, there will be Armoured Clash content. Obviously, it's part of the dystopian age, so we'll be covering that. We are going to figure out bat reps, because we know they're really popular and we know people want them. Like when I asked what people want to see from us, bat reps was the top thing, but the problem is that we have nowhere to record easy with good sound, because we have Elite Gaming Lounge. Is a really great place to play. It's fun, that people are really welcoming, that people are really interested in the game and engage with it and stuff, but it's loud. So
it's loud and it's a bit cramped as well.
It's quite a bit.
There's nowhere to put a tripod.
And on the flip side to that is that Black Dragon is, again, it's a great game store where we can go. We could just throw our stuff down, play a game, but it's a big empty space, so the audio quality would not be great in there. There is another couple of places that are potential, but it would cost us quite a bit of money to film there at the minute. So we are going to figure something out. We are potentially going to have a crack at a more narrative style game. So instead of being like, turn one, I did this, Sam did this, blah blah blah, that will stay on the podcast, and then we will do a story of the battle of the Black Dragon. The Crown forces rolled on, and the First Blood went to the Crown. It's going to be a more story sort of orientated thing, because
like I used to do with the Exodus.
Yeah, exactly. More that sort of way. We'd write a script, we'd record the footage, write a script afterwards, and sort of go that direction with it instead.
Yeah, tell a story with it. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
All right then, let's sign off.
So, thanks for listening, everybody, and hopefully we'll see you again very soon.
Happy trails, pilgrims. File number: Armis Amate 420-260-10. File closed. Agent Markov remains at large.